Hi, welcome back to Unmasked at Midlife. I'm Sarah, and this is where we talk about being late diagnosed autistic moms trying to figure out life as we go. Today, I want to share something that might sound familiar to many of you, and that is the signs that I missed before I was diagnosed autistic about 5 months ago. I can't believe how many clues were there, but I and almost everyone around me completely missed them or explained them away. If you are questioning whether you might be autistic, I hope that my story makes you feel a little less alone on your journey. The first big sign that I missed was sensory overload. For decades, I thought that I was just too sensitive or that I had anxiety. I remember being in busy, crowded places like shopping malls or grocery stores and just feeling like I wanted to crawl out of my skin. There were the sounds of conversations going around and the background music and the feet shuffling on the ground. And it was like my brain couldn't filter any of it out. It all combined to feel like this buzzing beehive that was constantly around my head when I was in these social situations. I would come home from shopping trips feeling completely exhausted, and I thought that was normal. I thought everybody felt that way. When I would mention something like the noise level somewhere, people would say, just ignore it, just ignore the noise. And I honestly had no idea how anyone could just ignore noise. Now I know that that wasn't anxiety. It was just my autistic brain trying to process way too much sensory information at one time. But back then, I did indeed think that I was just overly sensitive. The second sign was social exhaustion. I could handle social events. I often enjoyed myself at these things, but I would be completely drained afterward. I remember going to birthday parties or work events and expending so much energy trying to have a conversation with someone while my brain was thinking, what are their eyes doing? What is their mouth doing? What are they doing with their arms? Okay, they're crossing their arms, you cross your arms. It was like my mind was fighting between two things, being present and just having a conversation with a person and analyzing every move I was making to make sure that I was presenting normally. It was like I was an actor in a play on stage, and as you can imagine, this was exhausting. By the time I got home, I was wiped out. Most of the time, I would have to sleep in order to recover. My family or my friends would ask, like, what's wrong? What's going on? And I would tell them that I was just tired, which I was, but it wasn't a regular tired. It was like my brain had just run a marathon. I thought this meant that I was just introverted, but introverts need time to recharge. They don't feel like they are going to collapse after a social interaction. There's a difference between needing space and feeling like you've been hit by a truck. The third sign that I missed was trouble with transitions. Any change in plans would completely throw me off. Let's say my husband and I were planning on cooking dinner at home, and then he comes home and says, let's go out to dinner instead. It was like panic attack city. And it wasn't because I didn't want to go out, it was because my brain had already mentally prepared for cooking dinner at home. I would need time to process the change and to switch gears. I thought that this made me controlling or inflexible, but in reality, it was just my autistic brain needing predictability in order to function. The fourth sign that I missed was post activity meltdowns. I would have complete meltdowns after too much activity, but at the time I didn't realize that they were autistic meltdowns. After busy days with the kids, or a family gathering, or just a day with too many errands, I would be completely drained. I would get anxious and irritated and overwhelmed. I would cry at the tiniest things. And in all honesty, I thought that I was going crazy. Everyone, including me, chalked up this reactionary behavior to being a stressed out mom. But now I realize those were autistic meltdowns. It was my nervous system being completely overwhelmed and dysregulated, needing to discharge all of that pent up energy. The thing is, these didn't happen during the activity. I could hold it together in public. It was only when I got home and I was in my safe space that everything would come crashing down. The fifth sign that I missed was being too sensitive. My whole life, I have gotten the feedback that I am too sensitive or that I take things too personally. I cared deeply about everything. I remember being in elementary school, and there was a boy in my class, and he was going from desk to desk asking everyone for a black crayon, to borrow a black crayon. And no one was letting him borrow a black crayon. He was like the kid that no one really liked. But he got to my desk, and of course I let him borrow a black crayon. I mean, the fact that no one else did made me so upset. Like, how cruel can people be? And those are the types of things that I notice and that I take inside, and it's a part of who I am. I have tried to not care as much and to just be like less serious and a little less intense, but I've never been able to change. And now I know that it is just part of being autistic. We do feel things deeply, and it's not a flaw, it's just a part of who we are. Looking back now, I can see how all of these things were connected. They weren't separate problems, they were all part of my autistic brain trying to navigate and make sense of a neurotypical world without a roadmap. The hardest part of all of this is realizing how much I have always blamed myself for the way I am. I thought that I was weak or difficult or too much. I spent decades trying to fix myself instead of just understanding myself. If any of this sounds familiar to you, please know that you are not broken. You just might be autistic, and that's okay. Getting my diagnosis didn't change who I am. It just gave me a framework for understanding myself with compassion instead of criticism. If you are on your own discovery journey, I would love to hear about it in the comments. What signs do you recognize in yourself? What moments make you think, how did I miss that? Don't forget to subscribe if you want to join me on this journey of more self understanding, self compassion, and learning how to be in the neurotypical world with more joy and more ease. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, you are not alone. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.